Good day, everyone. I'm happy we apparently have a very, very good crowd or the maxed crowd. If you try to get in, a lot of people called me and they were not able to get in. So this is the maximum capacity that we have. And still, it is me. I have a little news for you because of this thing right here. It'll be short. And by the way, if that news actually becomes about, maybe the Title 24 will go away and you'll find out what that is. Just to let you know, right around 2008, 2010, when Cal Green Code was born, we created this website, and that's my blog. All the elements. A friend of mine in Hollywood is an Emmy Award winner and I believe Oscar. And he is actually maintaining it, and we have been doing this, and everything that I do goes here. I will be putting all my lectures for AIA, ICC, IAPMO, and the secondary tertiaries that is out there. It'll be dumped here after Christmas, and I'm still working on that. Just to FYI, I do have my whiteboard ready, and let me go back to my screen. I hope everybody's looking at this this screen. And I did show a screen, another screen, and I don't know if that showed up, which was the green array. And everybody can see the screen. Then we start going. Is Jeff, you can see it, correct?
Yes, I can.
Very good, very good. So, by the way, I'm the same person as last week. No changes, no surgeries or facial surgeries or anything. I'm still here. And all my assignments or lectures, I do go to LinkedIn, and all my lectures are embedded in Greenerate in my blog. Still the same show off, 2022 Engineer of the Year. And it's here, that's where I put a lot of my announcement or very, very short statements. January 19th and 20th, I'll be in San Francisco for the code inspectors. I am doing something on lighting for lighting Title 24. For the window manufacturers, I'm doing it for the doors and windows. Schneider controls, the controls for mechanical has become extremely awkward or very complex. I will be doing some sort of a webinar there. And for about 3, 4, 5 months for plumbing engineers, I'll be just doing all the plumbing changes. I believe it is accessibility that Jeff was talking about. It'll be on March 23rd. Just for all the young architects, I've done all the USC Architectural School lecture on ARE. I haven't done it 1 year since because of Zoom. And every lecture that I have resides at my blog. And why are we here? There is no water. The Rhine mine, the Main River in Germany is only 42 centimeters. It's about less than 4 feet. And you can almost walk through Mississippi River. The fossil fuel is limited, and then it has the climate impact. Greenhouse gas protocol is out there. The state is going, California is going net zero. They want to be like Holland and those cities. And guess what? In this new, you'll find, that there is no gasoline cars in 2035. And right now, you're not going to, even if you put gas appliances into the house, everything must be electric as well. Photovoltaic will be at every corner like Starbucks near you. And batteries will offset the peak loads away and away towards midnight. And I don't know how Public Utility Commission will give more money to the utilities. I am a nuclear engineer. I'm so sorry to say that. And but the news is here. Lawrence Livermore has broken the nuclear fusion. Remember 10 to the minus 14? That was a number that they were trying to break. And a couple of days ago, they now can actually make energy. And they can sustain it. We do have fusion bombs. You couldn't contain it, but now you have a system. If you have this plus hydrogen fuel station that I'm doing, if you add the two, technically we don't need any oil, you don't need any pollution, so on and so forth. Before I go too far, I wanted to give you this to all the architects. There was a risk management theory that I have, and I will tell you that at least I did two court cases last year. that simply says the Title 24, the new technologies, great of the installers, which are going down and down and down, overwhelming data that you have to compile to create a construction set, integration of all these disciplines. And in the old times, the plumbing book was only like few pages. Now it's a giant book. Mechanical, same way, and in cases in your building code is multiple volumes. You really need to verify your risk assessment and risk level for all the firms, whether you're one-man person or large firm. And I'm now promoting AIA, education, education, education. And that's for everyone, not just for the chiefs or the bosses of the firm. I highly recommend everybody would be in that bandwagon. I do homes, and of course the square footage of the homes and every square feet that you build, from Garden Grove at $1,000 per square feet to near the water, you could be at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a square feet. Space is very, very limited. However, the architects have to give more room for heat pump water heaters are mandatory. Even if you don't put it, you got to put the space because you will have it. PVs are there. Hopefully your buildings are facing the sun, not the moon, just the sun. And then the batteries are there. Batteries are not something that you could just float in. You do not want to be in front of the sun. You don't want to get cooked. And you do not want to, and by the way, if it's indoor, if you ask me, you have to ventilate it. And the ventilation fan has to be spark-free because there will be a small amount of a little bit of a hydrogen spiffing out of the batteries. The Freon systems that are more changes, I don't have time here, what some of the Freons are leaving town, at least for single phase, for the homebounds. And then those are less efficient. And therefore the heat exchangers, the condenser fins outside are getting larger and larger. And now the clearances, there is no space. And we are fighting, and we put 30 ton in a home, and we just don't have enough clearances, and we are literally working on inches, and we cannot be at least when the inspector shows up and throws the tape and you don't have the clearances. I'm sorry, what do you do then? Heat recovery units are out there. We used to talk about it when I was literally in school, and engineering school. We were talking about how many BTUs do you get. Right now, the state of California is squeezing every BTU in and out of the house. So if there was any BTUs leaving through the flue ducts, et cetera, they want to take it. But that needs a heat exchanger. That needs an equipment. That needs power. That means you need space. Sound acoustics are there. Although it is not in plan check, it is a noise criteria. Only more cities next to the ocean are asking for it. But I can tell you, if it comes about, even though you're not being plan checked, every city does have sound ordinance. Some cities is less, some cities is more. Please don't ignore them. I actually wrote a chapter of a book on acoustics. I don't want to do acoustics, but I can tell you, please verify that and do not go too far. VRF, which is variable refrigerant flow, is now part of the game. A lot of people use it. There's a lot of good things about it. However, there are refrigerant risk factors. Only one plan checker, Jim Nishimoto of Irvine, used to plan check. Nobody else did it. Now it's actually in the book because VRF has taken it another level. Chapter 11, mechanical code, you got to check because once that lawsuit happens, it goes everywhere. I highly recommend. In 2022, there's a lot of code changes in every one of the little baskets of the disciplines. You really want to do a very thorough correlation of all the members, because if something goes into the plan check and one of the members, one of the groups has to do a major change, it may impact the entire set. And I can tell you it is devastating, and you don't know who to charge at that point. And it's very bad. Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Okay, a caveat means let it be known. The one question, one word, and I highly, I would beg you to put that in the vocabulary and your general notes. It is a code word. It's called workmanship. It is in multiple multiple codes, and once it appears in one code, it has to appear on the other codes as well. And its workmanship is the It's called average skill and average intelligence. And that is true on the design and installation. In one of the other talks that I give recently, I do have multiple court cases. A lot of attorneys use that word in their wording in order to beat the architect, engineers, and or the installers. Please put that in there. It is a code word. The word nuisance is also in code, and that could be anything. Bad engineer, just because he talks like me. Sound, odor, glare, moisture, humidity, wind, comfort, etc., etc. Please worry about that as well. This is number one pet peeve that I have, because I do have court cases that individuals who are working on these super sophisticated control designs, they're not very sophisticated people. Johnny Carson, as I mentioned last time, always showed the video at 12 o'clock. He could never set up the time. Materials are changing. There's a lot of materials when I go to the shows. They are coming and they're either brought in by the hired consultants who go and do the wine and dine with the code bodies, or through the courts. Plastic piping actually came to California through the court system. Do you know the ramifications? In fact, I did one item on glues. In fact, literally happened. I have to study all about glues, adhesive, siphonic roof drainage, etc., etc. Siphonic roof drainage, I am personally against it. Temperature and weather are changing. Canada was 115 degrees. I wrote an article on that. Are your designs adapting? The colors degradation, materials, adhesives, etc., etc. All that goes back to education. Got AIA, and that's for everyone. I picked up this poetry. It's a Persian poetry that says, "Seek knowledge from cradle to grave," and I added through AIA, and that's the Persian word right there. Anyway, I hope AIA likes that. I sort of skipped the multifamily because there is a lot of elements that is embedded from last conversation that we had and what we are going to be doing now. And my assumption was most of you are doing non-residential as opposed to multifamily. But there is a lot of reciprocity between these sections, and maybe we'll come back one day again. I'm going to go 90 miles an hour, and everybody that knows me, they cannot handcuff me. Therefore, I will go that speed. We have three types of code. One is mandatory, which you will do and you must do. The other one is prescriptive. You're not going to an engineer. You're not going through the Title 24 calculations, etc. You use a cookbook theory, use the menu, and you just follow it. Is very, very, very difficult unless you got what they call a black box theory. It's very difficult to make one of those buildings work and still to have that all the architectural elements in it. It could be possible for a relatively economic house with that one. Otherwise, the last one is performance. You go through three programs that actually state has. One of them was just introduced a year or 2 years ago. And one is a state sanction, one is a private party, and the other one, private party, just came about to town. One key issue, let's say you did the performance and you find out you do not have to have any installation in the performance. No, you cannot do that. It has to be meeting the minimum of the mandatory. And believe it or not, last week we discussed, you have to have an R5, very odd number. Minimum in different climate zones. Remember, there are 16 climate zones out there. What is happening is that you cannot be an R0 because mandatory says it's an R5. Therefore, if performance can get you there, you will not go there. Okay, so minimum is mandatory, performance is beyond, and performance is a barter system where you build a house which becomes like a fishbowl, glass all over. That means that you have to go in the other arenas between the lighting, between the mechanical, et cetera, you do a barter system. In non-residential is very difficult to do performance. Let me tell you why. What is happening is the following. Let's say you did suite number 404 and you did the performance for the envelope and you entangled mechanical and electrical, etc., all into one package. For the life of that street or that building, you will only do performance. Therefore, you have to mingle all those together. You cannot go back. And that becomes a problem. One of the reasons on the performance, in the non-residentials, we don't intermingle the three different disciplines because it's very, very difficult. And the building department knows that particular building was done by performance and cannot no longer go towards the performance of mechanical, performance of electrical, performance of the envelope. You can, each one, you can do a performance, but you can also do global. One or two of the programs, the private programs, will do that for you. So just an FYI, that just to make sure what you're getting into. This is the energy code. I can tell you that this code was written by engineers, very, very dry. There is no humor. Understanding of it is very, very difficult. However, you can go to ICC, pick up this and the website. You can't not manipulate. You can only do screenshot. You can go to upcode and you could actually snatch it and take it the cut and paste. The beauty of ICC is that whatever is new is in red. That's very nice. In the upcode, sometimes they do say new or so, but they put a little parentheses and you got to look for it. But the only good part about upcode is that the blue statements, the blue writings are hyperlinked. And if you need the vocabulary of it, you can go to that section, etc. So that's the ICC upcode. Of course, you can go to State of California and just pick it up there as well. In the old times, you had CA, and that was the California modifications of the, for example, the building code. They have modified that right now. So these are the little macro bullet points, and then they'll go a little more intimate into the system. Number one is the non-residential hotels and motels. There are major changes. PV is now mandated. It's there. You cannot simply say, I am putting an office and no talk about the PV. You cannot simply say, I am not putting batteries. Now, you could. There are sections that you could actually ignore the batteries, but they have made it so difficult that you cannot ignore it. And I mentioned last time, the code does not say that you need a dimmer. They simply say you need a 30%, 50%, 70%, 100% different type of lighting stages. You're not going to do that. You'll put a $17 dimmer from one of these manufacturers and call it a day, or like me, buy it from Amazon for 10. So, and you go from there. Prescriptive heat pump is space conditioning. Right now, it tells you you're not going to be putting a gas furnace. It will be heat pump depending on what you're doing. Dose is a major issue, dedicated outdoor air systems. What that means is this: in all of my 35 years, the only time I have done it is in major climate like Palm Springs, or where the outside air is so cold. Let me give you one item. If you simply look at a 5-ton unit for a Santa Ana condition, which is a 95 degrees outside temperature, and you want to consider the same 5-ton in Palm Springs, excusez-moi, that is 3.5 to 4 ton, because outside air is so hot. What Dose does simply says, I am going to give you a permission. Go ahead, take some of the heat or the cooling that you have from the other instruments, throw it in front of the outside air to cool it down, to bring the outside temperature down. And there was a lot more discussion on that. So all of that means, please, 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 please do not fight the poor engineer. Okay, give him a space on the roof, give him all that, because he needs it now. Covered processes. I did a lot of, in fact, I'm still doing some processes on here and there. And those are manufacturing process, etc. Has been some changes there, because they simply say, oh, that's manufacturer. We won't talk about it. And now they're looking at them because they want to save every BTU, every watts in the state. Of course, controlled environmental horticultural space, the fantastic weed. That is a giant hog. They take multiple system lights, etc. They're looking at that as an energy hog as well. Multifamily has its own definition, and a section, so it's now lonely sitting in a corner. Administrative regulation, one of the items is that the lighting control acceptance tests or mechanical acceptance tests, those are third parties. Generally, lighting is known, mechanicals many times is the contractor himself. The most critical part is this. Imagine the store is going to open up. The lighting control guy says, excuse me, something wrong. I'm not going to comply with it. They are trying to make it more like like smog test. If you recall the smog test in the past, pass, no pass, and the guy making with little adjustment in the carburetor, and you would pass. No more. They're trying to make an electronic database so that there is no hanky-panky by anyone. So they're going that route. That's the administrative regulation issues. The only thing that I have is please do not change the lighting system. Do not change elements. Is right in the pathway as they're doing it, because if it does, the certifier comes in and it does not match, oh boy, okay, you, especially if the store was going to open up. I was bound to do a couple of these for a couple of projects. I can tell you, I went in there. These were all accepted and signed off by the city. Now I am there as a third party doing this. You will not believe they got delayed at least 2 to 3 weeks. Not because I'm a nerd. They were wrong. They just didn't never put that in. Outdoor lighting, I can tell you that it's very difficult to make the Title 24 work. They have modified some of the lighting zones from different places. They've moved it. And for God's sake, how do the auto dealerships have gotten so much blessing? Maybe they make so much money for certain cities, but that's one of the issues. One is an upglare, one is an overshadow to the neighboring properties. And it's more detailed in other locations. Extremely unique for commercial, extremely unique. You may have heard what we call district energy. For example, in one of the buildings and high rises in LA that I work, they have so much energy because it was built when I actually was born. It was designed when I was actually born, okay, 64 years ago. Imagine that has so much extra energy that they were trying to sell it to the neighboring property. That's called district energy. In a campus like a university, etc., they had a little plant and they have the district energy. So now simply says, if you simply go to a parking lot that you can't do anything with, and you don't have a shade, etc., you could go and actually put up to 20 megawatt of power. By the way, 1 megawatt, I've done solar farms, 1 megawatt is about 5 acres, you know, in a flat land. You put that in there, you can actually work with the surrounding buildings, and they can simply say, okay, X number of megawatts of a KW is mine, X is for that guy, and that's how you could sort of be a community shared solar system. And this way, your building does not have to have it. Now the guy has to write a 20-year contract with it. Is a little bit like LEED, but this has to be within locations. You cannot transfer to another property like your child or like your car. Equivalent or better than what the building was obligated to install. So if the guy was doing one type of solar and the other was doing another, you got to make sure that the 20 megawatt is better than what the guy was looking at. And again, the location has to be on a participating buildings. When we were doing solar farms, I can tell you that the utility companies were just hindrance. I mean, there were people who were there, they had millions to do it, but utility companies were not letting us to do it. But overall, that's what that was so unique. Again, all occupancies which are in new, they do have these sections, and multi-residentials was broken to residential and multifamily, with one exception. Please note that if there is a shop, if there is the corridors and or the sports area of the multifamily, those are still commercial. So whatever that we discuss here, it will apply to that. But within the community, within the units, that's still dwelling. Now, NFRC, because of TM Cobb, I am very involved on NFRC issues. In fact, they did not have it, And that was a question that was asked last week. What happens if there's a window that I am changing? It really depends on how soft the city is, how well they can manipulate. You possibly can, I'm answering that question again of last week that simply says, well, what you can do is take that unit and if somebody literally takes a stone and breaks it, that's a repair. But if you're changing it, the question is you have to go in through prescriptive and do the due diligence. At that time, they did not have NFRC, and we were doing manual J, and we would go to different towns and we would prove that a mechanical engineer with a license is proving it that they are equivalent. But all I can tell you, and I have a little section to put down, that please, your NFRC guidelines should be, your window schedule, etc., should be extremely plain, extremely clear to the contractors. There is no, oops, I did not see it. There was a case in Newport Beach that single glazing was put in as opposed to dual. It was a fiasco for months. I just heard it, the incident. There are default calculations that you could use based on the non-residential in the appendix NA6 for U factors, etc. But you can only use that for example, on skylights if it is less than 200 square feet. If you have a steep slope, for different zones, you have to use the age solar reflectance. Age solar reflectance versus the solar reflectance is they take the material, they assumed that material has aged 3 years, and then they take the test of what is the reflectance. The higher the number, the sun hits it and reflects it back up. And those are these numbers. No change for hotels and motels, etc. The metal framing was actually, it was not there. I did one building, a residential, and one in commercial. They did not have a very good metal framed U factors. They all have been reduced. That means that your efficiency of the building must go up. So everything, and you'll see when we talk about lighting the same way. Vertical glazing efficiency values are more stringent. So you will be much, they're trying to simply say, you're trying to introduce that product and tell the people, please come and buy this shirt. At the same time, you have to be very efficient inside the building as you're just trying to portray that shirt through the window. Anyway, those are curtain walls, fixed windows, so on and so forth. Storefronts. I believe I did mention last time something about storefronts, is that they do have a prescriptive system. I believe it was 150 square feet. If you change that a storefront without anything, I do know Irvine Company pushes, and many people push for you to modify your stores, and they do have those prescriptive. But in any case, that is there. Now, exterior doors. Listen, look at this. If the exterior door is 100 square feet, for the sake of argument, 10 by 10 for the sake of argument, and only 25 square feet of it is glazing, and the entire exterior door is considered a glazing. So please verify. Prescriptive air barrier. I have that here. I asked you last time for you all to modify and add continuous insulation on your building. I do see in many buildings when I'm driving, when I'm working with the architects, some people have not modified their details and they're hesitant to do it. That is becoming almost a must. Now, they have an air barrier and we got a moisture, we got a vapor barrier. We'll discuss that. And that air barrier is now almost mandated throughout, and we'll see the little slide that we have. The language added to include a specification on construction documents, how to do it, verification requirements, etc. So you're going to see this automatically in a very typical construction, a plan check correction anyway. Altered roof. If you have a minimum age solar reflectance, the thermal emittance, you're going to be looking at that. You have to show that the U factors have been reduced. So there is a little barter system that you're going to be doing. Existing building envelope walls where 25% or more of the walls have been altered. Excuse me, I'm sorry, pile 24. Alterations that have added doors must meet a prescriptive U value. So if you're doing an opening through a door, etc., they've given you some modifications because you have moved storefronts, etc., and that door is mandated either by fire department or somebody. They have allocated you some sort of a relief. Now, I put this in here, and I'm going to show you that simply says, please, 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 if you can and help your engineer add vapor barrier on the exterior, and you're going to talk about the air barrier shortly, and continuous installation, anything in that color is my wording, is not in the code. And I've simply put these sections here. Here, what I was going to show you, these are all the code zones. You see that? 1 through 16. 8, 9, 10 is more like the desert. 6 is near the ocean. Let me just give you my little 2 cents. If you're on the ocean side of the 405, that's about 6. If you are on this side of the ocean, I'm sorry, 405, you are on 8 if you're in Orange County, and you're 9 if you are in the Los Angeles area. I'm so sorry for anybody north, which I don't know, but very likely if you're in Long Beach, you are 6. So let me move on. By the way, this is the climate zone, but I just wanted to show you that you are required. Bingo, you're done. Every detail must have an air barrier. Now I'm going to show you one detail that I did. And again, these are different variations of the fenestrations, etc., that they're showing for minimum performance. This is something else. Again, because of my involvement with this manufacturer, TM Cobb, I have known all the linguistics that they use. You have a visual transmittance that was not in the code. This is what's happening. You had the U value, you had solar heat gain coefficient. Now you have the VT added. So if you have that column, you have to add the VT column. There are 2 more parameters that are there, but it's not being enforced. Just an FYI. But you have to have a VT. So beware, please. So little mini summary of what I've said. First of all, metal frame, they have a lower U factors, steeper sloped, they have a different SRI, they got their aged solar reflectance, visual transmittance is there, and bingo, major change, air barrier is there. What is an air barrier? Let me read it for you. Air barrier required in all climate zone except zone 7. So sorry, for hotels and motels. So wherever zone 7 is. Verification of air barrier is required, either the inspector or the third party. They have not created an Hearst radar for envelope for the commercial yet, but it smells that way. I'm just thinking loud. The non-residential Appendix 5 documentation will be used. Air barriers accepted materials are in that appendix. All square footage. Now, if you are simply saying that I have this particular box, let's say it's called the McDonald's, it's going to have the amount of air barrier on side north, front, north, however you're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, or based on the direction to the north, and you're going to put that, and that's your guideline. Again, I pepper always anything that I don't know, and I'm going to get confused by explaining it to you guys. I go and do my Google world. If Google was a guy, I would hug him, thank him, shake hands, and give him some hamburgers, because I can find it so fast. What is an air barrier? Air barrier system of materials designed and constructed to control airflow between conditioned indoor space and unconditioned outdoor space. Now, imagine we had this very, very tightly spaced, because the green code forced us to be extremely tight. The green code required us when you put the base plate in, you put a set of glue there and all that. At the same time, building is moving, squeaking, and is going through the soil consolidation every 9, 15, 30 years, and is moving. That's why you see cracks on the stucco. Now you got to put plastic. Interior, some sort of a visqueen like plastic. I believe they do have a guideline on material and specifications. You're going to be putting, this thing is going to be very, very, very tight. That means that now this will trigger that if you do need combustion air for your furnaces, for your equipment, for whatever, that becomes major issue now. There is no leak. This thing is super tight. And because of the air, they are just worried about that. By the way, plastic is not cheap. Installing it is very hard, especially if you put that in your, it's susceptible to tear and wear, and it's bad. What is a vapor barrier? Is to reduce the moisture content. What would moisture do? Well, besides, contaminating and moisture brings mildew, et cetera, it does worsen the heat transfer as well. But air barrier is more important, vapor barrier, if it is requested by your Title 24 guy, and you're adding another membrane. But this was the most interesting part. A vapor barrier, the air barrier is on the outside. The vapor barrier is on the inside. Now, there is a lot of concern that I have. What happens if I'm in Louisiana? I want to make sure that the vapor barrier, the moisture doesn't come inside the building. Should be on the outside or in the inside. Of course, if you're making like a computer room where you got the moisture content, you have to put on the inside. Or when you have the liquor barn or where you keep your cigars, etc., on the vapor barrier will be primarily to make sure that the moisture is not leaving. At the same time, air barrier is on the outside. Just note this. That's a debate that I've had with myself for many, many years. But air barrier will be on the outside. You have to tape it, seam it, etc., etc. And it's very similar to visqueen. When you have this visqueen thickness that goes in there, and they do have a special tape so that you have to make sure that that seam will still be there. And by the way, the city of Newport challenged me that, there is a standard. No, sir. It is the number of mils that you need. It's required. And by the way, for a price difference of so much visqueen, you can get a far better, non-terrible 12 mil, 15 mil, very, very cheap for price difference. Very good. But anyway, that was very interesting. This is a major issues, and you will be. Now, in terms of design documents, as of January 1st, you're going to wake up and tell your guys, hello, you got to show where the boundaries are. So you got to put some sort of a dash. So if I am the plan checker, I will be asking, where are your boundaries of your air barrier? Interconnections and the penetrations. Where do you have these details? When you have a penetrations through the roof, you are putting some sort of a sealant, some sort of a cap, some sort of a caulking material so that the rain does not come in. In this case, we're talking about air. So you're going to be showing all those penetrations, how you are going to protect this boundary or air barrier. Now, at the same time, I'm going to ask either graphically or somehow, and maybe there will be a nice plan checker that simply says, show me square footage on all four sides, or you will have it on your plan check, on your design guidelines or somewhere. Materials, these are all in the they are all in the manual, which I have actually shown it, but you will be expanding on it. Maybe you'll make a poster for a long time. Materials, they are simply saying, if you do have a material, by the way, even plastic, even if they simply say you have it, you can have some leak. How much leak? 0.004 CFM per square feet of material of wall that you have the air barrier. And how do you do it? You pressurize the room to 0.3 inches, and you find out how much CFM are you losing. And I'm going to not going through the testing. Assemblies, if somebody says, hello, I got these prefab walls, let's put them in the same way, but now you are allowed a little more loss. Or you simply say, excuse me, I don't know what I put in. God bless you. Thank you. I'm going to go get a testing agency, and you're going to use an ASTM procedure and verify, and that's my exceptions. Or somebody made a boo-boo. They never read it, right? And one of the items was one guy called me, he says, oh, your plans are long. I said, can I talk to the guy? He says, no, he's Korean. I said, oh, what language did he read my plans? They were all in English. So they must be able to understand this, and you must, at least for the sake of first 4 or 5 months, make it bold. I'm doing a house right now that the guideline simply says that a bathroom will be one single individual circuit will be in a bathroom, and you cannot mix this with the others. So they have given me the electrician's design. I can tell you everyone is wrong. So every bathroom, there's a lot of more changes that you got to do, because the electrician forgot that this code is 6 years old. Now, in this particular case, is very fresh. They don't know it, and they will make a mistake. And very, very, very likely, they will miss it in their bid because they just have not seen it. So verification, if required, or if the inspector is a nerd and went to school of nerdology, they got to test it per NA6 air leakage. You can give them that. If it is more than 0.40 CFM, they could do a visual inspection. Diagnostic evaluation has been given. And if it is more than 50,000 square feet, they could do sampling. I'm not going to go through the detail because I'm not very good at it yet. I have to verify. So this is the actual section of the code. The reason I put this in, because I was confused on some of the rates of the leaks, which was odd, because between material and this assembly, they're different. I guess that's how they deem to like it. And I put down the whole item. And this is the materials. And then I do have it for assemblies. And I did not put it in. I didn't put it in. I'm going too fast. There is a material list of the air barriers that you can put in. I am on page 156. It is 516, and I got 100 slides to go. Yes, sir.
And that's kind of good segue. There was a text that came through asking if your slides would be available for the attendees.
I have a suggestion. Email me if they want it tomorrow, no, Monday. Monday. I will email everyone what they see. It's not a big file. It's only 256, but I will be posting it on my website. I still believe on my multifamily, I need to elaborate further. But as a raw, I will be more than happy to give them no problems. But let's email it. But at the end of the day, not end of the day, but at some point shortly, I will be placing it on my website and my blog, and they can download the whole thing. Yes, sir. Not a problem.
Thank you.
Very good. Let's go back. These are some of the major items on the certification of the fenestration and exterior door. Let me give you one item based on what I heard from the factory, is that the avalanche, because the number of testing group that are actually NFRC approved are very, very few, unless they go outside of the state, etc. But there are very, very few. They are so inundated with testing, and we are talking about the major, from the Pellas and all those wonderful to the small custom-made ones. They are so inundated that they're getting a 6 months, 8 months extension because they just can't meet it. There is so many tests. And then the one other issue that I'm going to give you a warning: if the inspector is good, the molding that goes around the fenestration has to be verified that it was tested that way, because we have seen problems there where the architect said, "Oh, I'm going to change the molding." So you want to communicate with your to identify that the molding is right. The second negative part about the doors, windows is the following: it comes such a late in the game in terms of the specification, in terms of purchasing. And also the contractor goes to one vendor, that vendor is not a distributor, then that vendor goes to the distributor. So there is such a long chain of custody by the time it gets to the door. And there is a lot of oops moments. And I can tell you, you do not want to have egg on your face. It could be very, very hot egg. So those are some of the issues. The other item that I'm just going to speak out loud is that the code mandates that till the end of the construction, the sticker that has an NFRC, by the way, they have a they're the Lone Rangers. There's nobody else. They're just them. That sticker that is there will last till the final certificate of occupancy, and there should be a permanent one somewhere on the fenestration. So let's go back. Certification of the fenestration of the exterior doors, other than the field fabricated. Once you go to field fabricated, you got to use the default values. And I mentioned before, if you try to use the default values, there's no way in this world you can make that building work. It's just impossible. The only way that you can possibly get away if that glass, just one glass is broken and you're doing a repair. The other situation that I had was in the Los Angeles, in the middle of downtown. There was a historic area and something was happening, and I had to certify that everything that they actually fabricated through Manual J mimicked 1953, believe it or not. But I was the person who was going through the process. So that is that. So when we talk about default values, you can kiss that goodbye for 99.9% of the jobs. The U factors, solar heat gain, now the VT, fraction of visible lights transmitted through the product, those three are part of the NFRC calculations. VT was not. By the way, VT was always given to the manufacturers as a remedy because they were testing, but nobody was looking at it. So the number was there, but right now they're getting enforced. Two other items will be coming to a theater near you. It could be in the future codes. One is called air infiltration, that you have it sealed, etc. How much air is actually seeping through. The condensation resistance, 0 to 100. How much this door or window is resistance towards condensation. By the way, I've learned so much from this manufacturer, is that when you are looking at a window, fenestration is here and the door is here, you get the trim, you need a 1/8 of an inch paint between the window and the trim. That 1/8 paint will ensure that the air infiltration will not go there. Don't forget, I learned it the hard way. So do not take your your blade and just get rid of it. You must leave that 1/8. That trim is make sure that the condensation will not get in. I am not a proponent of the argon system, etc. Everything in the world, I can talk about plastics forever, okay? Every plastic will leak at some point. Just take a balloon, go to 99-cent store, get a balloon for 99 cents, keep looking at it. The air will actually seep through that plastic. Everything will actually seep through and infiltrate. So just to let you know, infiltration and condensation will be maybe in 3 years from now, and we'll repeat this. Again, if you have skylights less than 200 square feet, you could use the formula that is below, where the C1, C2 factors are there. You could use those U values and go from there. There's only one issue I'm going to bring up to you guys, is as follows. There is another section of the code, which is both on the fire code and somewhat on the building code. The skylights must have enough strength for a 20 pounds per square feet load to be there. So if a fireman is putting his foot on that skylights, you're not going to go down. So a flat glass that you buy at Home Depot, oh boy, that is not, but that is actually in the building code. If you see it and they got away with it, et cetera, and if the fire department sees it, they put a tag and they will go around it, because they do not want to have a firefighter go down through that hole. Just an FYI. But by the way, all plastic ones, they are rated, but when you get to glass, no. Anyway, that is the equation that is here, and it's now I do not know how to emphasize. Architects select doors, windows, skylights. They are responsible for it. The Title 24 guy just induces that into a table, goes from there. Somebody in the middle of the road changes, and the havoc begins. So please ID the windows. Please have it in a very, very nice table. There's one architect that I work with We have elaborate, very, very, very elaborate system with the NFRC numbers, glazing the directions. I can talk about directions forever. How many plan checkers don't even now know what that means, especially the question that was asked last week. So if you have and I make the example of my phone, that simply says that if you have a track home and you move this it's a white paper, you can't see it. If you move this house in many directions, do you do 500 directions? No, you do it only in 4 directions: north, east, south, west. And the north is defined, whatever you defined it, hopefully with a north 45 degrees aperture for that direction. Unfortunately, plan checkers are still, some of them are inhaling something. So anyway, have the NFRC, have that there, and then put a bold notes. You, the contractor, please do not modify. Thank you. I am not going to talk about mechanical. I'm only bringing up issues that will relate to you, because the mechanical changes are monstrous. The controls are monstrous. And again, I can tell you about so many projects that the mechanical engineer is here, the project is here, the controls are here, communications are bad. I'll give you one item. There was a bakery that could not make any bread for about 3.5 months because the control guys could not communicate and set the temperature right so that the taste of that bread would come out right, literally for 3 to 4 months. So controls. I've been advocating that. And a very good friend of mine says, I bought a brand new car. I don't know what these buttons mean. And that's what I think. I mean, because the mechanical contractors are mechanical contractors. The level of electronics that is there is so humongous. And in one of the court cases that we had last year, it was all about the sophistications of controls, etc. Now, increase in efficiencies, cooling systems, cooling tower, furnaces, and the boilers, they are going to 2023 in the month of 10th month. No, they delayed it to, I'm sorry, the 10th day for whatever reason. They are getting larger, and the fin areas are getting more larger. And then there are what is called a cascading system. They're not in single constant gas anymore. They cascade 10 times or 20 times from, let's say, 10% to 100%. There are other issues with that, but just an FYI. The efficiency of our, I talked about DOS, which is dedicated outdoors air systems. I've done it in 35 years twice. So I did it in California City for Hyundai plant. I did it one, which was a court case in Palm Springs, and I did another one in Costa Mesa. It didn't go to become a legal case. It was somebody else designed it. We had to go fix it. And again, humidity, that was the problem. Computer room units, there's more elements there, tables, controls. Heat pumps are now name of the game. Heat recovery, chillers, etc. There are literally heat exchangers. They need space. Please do not fight the poor engineer. Let them have space. These are the mechanical code changes. There's only a couple of, in any case, I'm not going to go through this. Now, ventilation. I went through 2 years of lecturing on COVID. Let's bring in more outside air. Let's do this. Let's do that. We actually have several buildings designed that way. LEED, if you do LEED, I have one LEED right now in LA. It's 970,000 square feet. I'm going 30% increase in outside air. There are many articles that if you bring more light, more fresh air, etc., the productivity increases for the employees. Hello, changes. There's a contrary. The code limits your ventilation. Now let me tell you what we are looking at right here. These equations come from ASHRAE 62.1. Now, in the actual ASHRAE 62.1, the RP is 10. Because the state of California says 15 CFM outside air per person, they have modified the 10 to 15. Now, this is a little bit more than the regular 15 CFM, But if you have a very giant volume void and is a giant foyer and got a 30 feet high, your ventilation rate will be higher. We'll get to that point. They do not want you to be higher than this. So if the plan checker is very good plan checker, I am so sorry. That's your outside air CFM. So if you're doing lead, you got to tell the guy that I'm not going to get you that point. I'm so sorry. And if somebody is, by the way, all of us, especially me, which I talk a lot and I give a lot of hot air, I give CO2 out. What happens with the CO2 is that once the ppm level goes up, people get nauseated, etc. And that's very, very important for classroom issues where you have one unit and you have so much outside air. And when the CO2 level goes up beyond 800 or 1,000, outside air kicks in so that people will not get dizzy, especially after they have very good food, or if it's in the afternoon hot, you get a little bit dizzy. All of that is, you can kiss that goodbye with the limitations that the code is putting on you, because when you bring 125 degrees Fahrenheit from outside in Palm Springs, or 95 here, or more like 89, 90 in and near the ocean, you still have to bring it down to 75 degrees because that's where comfort is. By the way, the word habitant has been changed to the word comfort. And I can tell you that's a legally very, 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 very open word that you can play with it and sue people. So just to let you know, and that's in the mechanical code, very likely is now in the building code as well. But 15 CFM, they're limiting you so that you will not bring in. Now, how do you come up with a number of CFM? Here you go. Of course, this is from the building code, CBC 1004.5. And then mind you that you pick that up. That's your maximum number of CFM that you have. You can plug into the ASHRAE. You can use the 15 CFM. But now, God bless the plan checkers. They are putting so much requirement based on these forms that state has provided, and we have to provide, and that's what you have seen. Now, hello. Exiting, plumbing facilities, fire, all that correlates to different numbers. So you will have multiple tables, but for ventilation, that's the table that is being used. Now, what happens is this, that where you have a VAV control, let's say you have to have a 4-ton, 1,600 CFM, VAV simply says you still have to have a little bit of fresh air coming in continuously. OSHPOT, for those of you who are doing a hospital work, and if there is a VAV system, there is a whole set of actuators, et cetera, that OSHPOT. Now, that includes OSHPOT 3 if you're doing a local hospitals or local surgery centers. Other designs, they want you go back and test this thing within 10% of the rating, test all the constant volumes on VAV boxes. Now, by the way, that was being done before, but right now they're really, really making this stringent. One of the cases that I had with City of Newport plan checker, he was asking for some numbers to be inputted to the forms that nobody can check. So if I am bringing air conditioner number 105 has 300 CFM of outside air, he was telling me, you have to tell me which room is getting how much CFM. It is impossible. Endless is a NASA-rated project. It is impossible. This is an issue. We do have HERS testing. You're going to allow maximum 6% leakage rate only because you're not, life is not perfect. But if you have this thing, because again, the elements, by the way, let me give you this. Hard, rigid ductwork is everywhere in the commercial world, unless you go to the last 3 to 5 feet. And then even then, they're allowing you 6% of maximum leakage rate. Now, I do not know if that is going to be tested, is going to be verified, but we know that air balance is required. Conditioned air to occupy space, if it is constant volume or a single zone, those are testing is required. If the area is less than 5,000 square feet, they want you that's conditioned floor area, CFA. They want you to do leakage test. And if 25% of the duct is outside of the space or outdoors, simply travels and comes back in, hello, I need your test. I need to do the leakage test. The exemptions are healthcare facilities. It's very difficult. If it is greater than 6%, new duct system are not subject to testing because they have to do a different testing with based on California Mechanical Code. Anyway, those are the exemptions. Again, I really did not want to get this far into mechanical, but there are certain parts that relates to your system. I just didn't know what, but in any case, let me just go through this. They do want, remember when you were watching Star Trek and everybody had a little element on their shirt and the lights would turn on, air conditioning would turn on, etc. Hello, they're asking you to do exactly like occupancy lighting sensor. They're looking at occupancy control ventilation sensors, very similar to that. So if there's a VAV box, the aperture opens and closes. Prescriptive, schools, zone 2 through 15, which is almost any of us, heat pump. You can't put furnace anymore. 1 and 16 oddballs, dual fuel, which is heat pump as well as furnace. Retail, grocery, office, financial, libraries, all heat pump. Again, 1 and 65. I want to apologize. That was me. And anyway.
Don, you want to take a break?
Let me find out. I want to take it at the right. Let me get. Actually, let's do it after these two slides right there. So, libraries, everything. No more furnaces. There is an architect that I work with. He loves heat pump primarily. By the way, again, like last week I mentioned, heat pumps are very good to certain areas, but they are pushing it for commercial. And that's another discussion. Let's say you're in Santa Barbara, you're in certain zones, which is very cold, but the heat pump manufacturers have made that possible as well. So, but if it's a small, the cooling is less than 5 ton, you can still use you can use a furnace. If it is a grocery, retail, office, library, etc. As somebody asked last week, if you have 50 5-tonners, yes, you can use furnaces. But otherwise it is dual. The office in a warehouse, no questions. It shall be a heat pump. There is a entire concept of what's called fan powered. Let me not get into that arena. That opens up a big can of worms, and that's more mechanical than anything else. Jeff, let's take that break. I'm going to talk to my phone, not to speak to me for the next hour.
All right, well, thank you. So what I'm going to do right now, there'll be like a 5-minute break. This poll is not mandatory, but it will help out the 2 chapters, just so we have a good understanding of your ADA needs for 2023. So let me just launch this. And like I said, there will be a poll at the end of this a program as well, so please stay on for that. That's the more important one. But let's launch this one right now. And I'll give you a couple minutes to go ahead and respond. There's a reason why. Yeah, okay, that's good. So we're getting people to respond. We have a collaboration between our 2 chapters, Long Beach, South Bay, and Orange County. On January 12th, will be a 1.5-hour program. You can certainly sign up for that now. So keep that in mind, or go to the calendar today, tomorrow, whatever. And if you need those, sign up. For those of you, 24% are saying no. That's fantastic. We'll just give it a little bit more time. There are many ways, of course, to get your learning units. We certainly prefer that you attend our local chapter events. 1, they're in person. 2, you don't have to take a test. But if you're stuck, it's the last minute, you just forget you didn't have them, you got to get them by tomorrow. You can always go to AIA California. You can go there anytime, really. And they have them pre-recorded, but there are tests involved as well. So know that there are options through AIA for you to be able to get these ADA units. Thank you. So I am going to go ahead and end this. I see we had on Janus Kent, I think that Long Beach South Bay uses Janus Kent all the time. So thank you, Jerry, for bringing that up. And here we go. And we put the link in to register once again. Please make sure you do that. It's our way to make sure that we can record your learning units. So I'm going to end the poll, and then Sam will be back in a few minutes.
I guess, as they say in golf, I am teed up. Oh, I got to show it here. I'm teed up. So I'm ready for you. Sorry, that was a golf joke. By the way, I play handicap when I do golf. That's another joke. All my jokes have ADA stickers on them. Let's move on. They have the code has really got into minuscule in every section of anything that uses power. If you are looking at fans, they are going through it immensely. By the way, some of the items that I mentioned here, if you're at different elevation, they have a little correction factors for that. Economizers was a device that was added to it used to be 7.5 ton, became 5, it became 4, the last code, now is 3 ton. Is a little device that adds to the end of a mechanical unit. And what happens is when the outside air becomes very cool, the compressor goes down and you just invite the outside air in. Now, once you do that, you're pressurizing the room. Once you pressurize the room, now you have to put some sort of a fan control so that you can manipulate the air and air balance it. All that is there, rooftop split, small splits, VRF, all that, everything has to be economizer. And there are certain ways that you can not install it, and those exceptions are there. Trade-offs, and then if you install certain COP, very cooling at a higher level, you can ignore the economizers. The BTUs, they are now they want to be very, very efficient, 90% efficiency on all the boilers for all those zones. Apparently, for whatever reason, our zone 8 is not included. And then you have to modify those. And if your boilers are less than 300,000, you don't have to meet it, but that's how it is. And by the way, of course, all the air quality that we have in Southern California, they all have to be met. That's the both South Bay and North. Dedicated outdoor systems. That means that you're really taking this thing and you're squeezing every BTU out of it. And if you do, I'm going to give you a trade-off. I'm going to give you some cookies, etc., because you're using the dose. And they're looking at everything. Now, even the fan that you put in there that is trying to save some BTUs for you or KWs for you, even that is under control. You cannot just go buy a fan, for God's sake. That's blasphemy. So in any case, all these dose, et cetera, at the end of the day is how can I save BTUs, watts, et cetera, et cetera. And if I have to use a fan for this particular purpose, that fan, for example, can only use 0.12 watts per CFM. That simply says the rotary fan, the system that is there, the armatures, all the mechanical systems is so efficient that it will be very, very efficient and you can use it. Otherwise, no. Supply fans, exhaust fans, they have to have minimum three speed and or will have multiple speed controls, and it'll be there. Now, anyway, let me move on. There's one item that I am going to give you, the 60 degrees Fahrenheit. For those of you who do medical work, blood below 60 degrees Fahrenheit cannot function. Therefore, the code says if you have a backup heating system, your building, your hospital, and the patient who's in that bed will have 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's, you don't have to do it. Those are not, but exhaust heat recoveries are there. Again, number of hours, zones, all that is part of the control. There's gobbledygook of tables for that. There are exceptions, laboratories, factory exhaust systems, they're not part of it. If it is less than 40 hours, if it's in different zones for different processes, you don't have to put it in. Alteration system, HVAC alterations, additional fan power allowances if you have to put it in. Again, I don't want to go too far. Boilers are mandatory. Used to be 5 million. Now it was 10 million BTUs per hour. Now it's 5 million. Those boilers have to be more efficient. Compressed air, you can't just put the pump in there and simply say, we just did a building in Vernon and nothing. We just put the compressor, done. Now we got to put the calculation. Steam traps, not many projects in this climate. So this is the item that I mentioned for covered processes. There are, if you are doing a manufacturing product, let me just go, just in case if any of you is going through, if there is a CO2 refrigeration system, they do have restrictions. If you have compressed air, now, by the way, that could be almost, if they wish, that could be just for a mechanic, okay? Controlled environmental horticulture, if you got some sort of a lettuce or weeds or whatever, all that will be controlled. Mandatory requirement for steam traps, etc. That is not so much. I've not done much of it. Only for meat processing plant. Mandatory measure for computer rooms, reheating, humidification, and fan controls. We have done computer rooms, that will be mandated. New prescriptive method for computer rooms requiring refrigeration, economizer, coefficient, etc. You can't just simply say, hello, I got the Liebert unit, I'm going to be done with it, or CompuAir. Apparently, Liebert has modified, has been gotten ready for this particular section, and they do have something. And the most interesting part is this. This is electrical. How did it end up to be in part of the mechanical system? They want you to make sure that if you put a UPS system, that is a efficient UPS. Wow. Okay. Now, what is happening is that the new system, if you have it for computer rooms again, additions, alterations, there are some requirements. And if you got for horticulture, etc., those are alterations. You still got to go back, but this is the code section that you got to meet. So if any of you are in the realm of the processing, etc., and the plan checker is good, he will zoom into this box and simply says, you will do the modifications. Generally, I can tell you the worst one that was very, very interesting. It's actually a building code section. I believe it's 1203 or 1204 that says the following, says that in a space that and gives you two exemptions. Somebody says, thou shalt maintain 72 degrees Fahrenheit for the following ambient, for a non-residential space. And then it simply says a word, a very plain English, that if heating is not an issue, in San Diego, they forced us to put an air conditioning unit in the middle of a kitchen because it says. Now, San Francisco was very smart, took that section and literally put in parentheses, kitchens are exempt. Just to let you know, you may get a rainbow of products and plan checkers. And I can tell you some of the plan checkers, especially the outside ones, they do not want to discuss. And I guess they will not make enough money if they discuss items with you. And in certain cases, we have to bound because time is our enemy, not their enemy. And they can have something in plan check for months and months, and the owner that you represent is losing money. In my case, they literally went ahead and put the air conditioning in. Very, very awful. I've done thousands of restaurants. The reason I brought this thing up, the only people who have major air conditioning, Burger King, Carl Jr., as well as McDonald's, and I've done all three, not many Burger Kings. They have a 20-ton air conditioning in the middle of the kitchen, 10 or 15 to 20 ton, and they call the manufacturing process. That's how they were putting those tonnages in there. They were dumping in 20 ton, which is about 8,000 CFM of cooled air, and right away it went out the door through the fabulous exhaust system. I don't know if that, I haven't done recently those, but that would be a question. Again, environmental horticulture, indoor growing. Now they're looking at dehumidification system, lighting, electrical power distribution. One of the items is an electrical issue, is not here. They're now looking at a voltage drop of the wires. They do not want you to lose more than 5% voltage drop on the wire, because if you do, you're losing the fabulous watts of energy in those wires. Conditional greenhouse, the envelope, space living, lighting, et cetera, those are part of that system. Computer rooms, control environmental. If you do have a reheat system, it must be controlled. You cannot have simultaneous heating and cooling at the same time, because they are defeating against each other. So you're heating and cooling at the same time, they're offsetting. Humidification must be adiabatic. That means that the room is completely covered with those vapor barriers. That's adiabatic. Adiabatic means that there is no heat transfer. But in this particular case, that's a wrong word that they have used. Is primarily there is no transfer of vapor through one side or the other. Variable fan controls, anything God bless the controls group. The fans are all, they can go up and down, but there's one item about VFDs. You cannot put a VFD without putting something telling with a VFD what to do. So there is everybody's, especially in the pool houses, pool, not playing pool, billiards. I'm talking about swimming pools. They are putting all these VFDs, 3,000 to 7,000, but nothing controls them. So VFD is a device that takes the motor goes up and down. You have to tell them something. For example, that the filtration in the pool is getting very dirty. Increase the GPM so that the same amount of flow goes, or sends out a signal to somebody, please clean the pool. So anyway, and that's what that means. Must have, I think I just repeated myself there. Now, the other issue is there are pumped refrigerant economizer. Those are for the computer room units. And this is what I mentioned that Liebert has already done. So there are certain systems and you have to follow these. So, and by the way, we are ordering a Liebert for a surgical center, 48 to 52 weeks for delivery. That's how long it takes for you to order. A cooling tower is from 3 months to 6 months. Switch gears are 32 to 64, it depends, is astronomical. It looks like they go to the ore, they pick up the copper, they weld it, and the guy is doing the malleating and the fabricating and the Stone Ages, and brings you the switchgear. It's awful, awful. This is very interesting. I have never seen an uninterrupted power supply, or UPS, being controlled by Title 24 in the mechanical section. Now, if you put a UPS, thou shalt have a proper output UPS, because UPS is, if you got too big of a UPS, guess what? You're losing efficiencies, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have that, there is a fabulous equations, and these are the numbers that you have to comply, and depends on how much UPS. Is UPS less than 350 watts, and then 1500 to 10,000, greater than 10,000. Those are the one issue that I'm going to give you is all the batteries in the world, they got a life expectancy. There are two problems with batteries. A, if you put a battery on a shelf, it'll degrade by itself. B, it has number of cycles that goes back up and down, up and down. As it goes up and down, the histogram of its capability goes down. At some point, you got to throw that away. And one more item, the batteries that are in the UPS system, they all spiff out a very, very small amount of hydrogen during the overcharging and discharging. And guess what? Hydrogen, we call them a bomb. And you have to make sure that you do have ventilation, and all the fan system there are non-sparking. There is for example, a manufacturer called Lauren Cook, that everything that they do is aluminum. So if you just buy that, you don't have to worry about it, but it has to be brass or non-sparking, just in case. Again, those are the numbers. The P is the power. E mod is a number that you have to put in, and the Ln is the natural log. And by the way, you got to carry this to the third decimal when you do the calculations. Now, domestic water heaters, this is an issue that I am going to beg, please allow space for the heat pump water heaters to be there. I'm going to reserve my statements. I wrote so many articles against tankless water heaters that I actually got invited to go to Japan for about a week. And I had meetings with both Tokyo Power as well as the Japanese Plumbing Society. I can tell you that there are certain issues. It's very, for now, it's very difficult for me to debate, but it's already done, is the law. And if we don't do it, we'll get handcuffed, not me, but we'll get arrested. The main issue is that these are the laws. So zone for 1 and 16, you have to use compact hot water distribution. I do not want to go into the word what compact means. Less than 2,500 square feet distribution. You can't go bigger than that. Zone 16 is a drain for heat recovery system. So if the water is leaving the system, is getting drained, can you capture the BTU out of that heat? Anyway, I will leave that for you. And then you can have a gas or propane instantaneous water heater, 199,000 BTUs, not 200. The code says 200. It is less than that. What is a hot water heat pump or water heaters that's coming to a theater near you? Is as follows. You have a heat pump that is producing and giving you some cooling at somewhere. That cooling, by the way, has to dissipate the cool and into somewhere else. What it does is that it heats through that condenser, the tank, and voila, you now have hot water. That's how the system works. And there's a little spiel here. Again, I'm going to reserve, I'm going to take my fifth if I'm going to make any comments on this. I haven't done enough studies. And when I ask for the white paper, by the way, I'm not prejudiced. Nobody gives me the white papers. And I will leave it at that. Central domestic hot water system for greater than one dwelling. They have to have a loop. Let me give you one item. In non-residential, if you have the water heater here and you got 12 feet 1 inch away, your sink is here. For that one hand sink, you will have a recirculating pump. That's in the energy code. That was 3 years ago. So be closer, use the instantaneous, whatever you do. But if it's more than one dwelling, they want to make sure that your recirculation loop tanks are there. They actually give you design guidelines, what to do and what not to do. Leave it for your mechanical engineer to do. And they talk about the temperature gradients between different, where the tanks are, etc., multi-dwelling units. And then again, I'm not going to go through this. Solar can be reduced by 5% if the drain heat recovery systems are there. So if you're doing solar hot water system, that's somewhere here. If you're doing that, and by the way, solar hot water system in 1978, I was in 78, I was getting my second degree. I did a lecture and I was designing solar hot water system. That was right during Jimmy Carter, et cetera, et cetera. So I just pray whatever you're doing is going to stay forever. And because that didn't go too well after we found out we got oil and got et cetera after the oil embargo. Anyway, that was something. Indoor lighting. I'm really going to go at 6 o'clock. I'm going to go try as much possible to capture this. Number one is that in commercial, we did not have a lot of hard time in making the Title 24 work. There are two parts in Title 24. One is controls. One is the wattage, the lighting power density that you have. Majority is because the LED industry did a fantastic job. Very, very good job. Now, we had cases that it was one of those lifting places, and everything was supposed to be black. And by the way, just to let you know, the Title 24 indicates you must provide a very light sheen colors on the walls, very reflectance. It is in the code, okay? In this particular case, everybody had black, everybody wore black, and the instruments were black and all that. So when the guy was lifting the elements, and apparently there's a little marking where they got to put their fingers on. He couldn't see it because everything was black. Now with the lighting design that was there with the colors of the lighting, etc., he couldn't tell. So they were bringing additional light for the weightlifter to be able to see where he was putting his fingers on. So there are, other than that case, or the other part is that when we do all the Italian stores, all the Italians who are designing the lighting system outside of the country, they just make a super Christmas tree, and we are just breaking it down, and we bring the wattage of those lamps down. There's one item I'm going to pray that you all that remember. When you send a cut sheet, and we are simply saying as a lighting Title 24, we are putting 13 watts. It has to be noted because they're going to bring the 26 watts. Now, maybe the inspectors, the third-party inspector will not see it, but if they do, the opening day is 3 days from now. How in this world are you going to change those lights? How in this world you cannot be able to modify it? It's very, very difficult. So again, going back in the past 3 years, even the past 6 years, because of the LED world, we have been able to make the Title 24 work. The controls is a different issue. Controls, fortunately, lighting manufacturers, lighting distributors, etc., some of the lighting installers, some of them have actually got elevated to a very good point that we don't have a lot of controls issue, but we still have controls issue. Let me give you one more again, because I got 27 minutes. In the lighting controls, we had what was called primary. What was primary is the primary zone daylight harvesting. When your I'm going to see if I can do this. 1 second. I tried last week. It did not work out, but I'm going to try it. And not that one. Sorry, this one. And I'm going to see if I can do this correctly. New share whiteboard. I hope that's the one. Oh, sorry, this one. Okay, let me just. Jeff, can you see my little fabulous Picasso painting?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. By the way, it'll be in Louvre next week when I'm done with this. Let me just tell you the following. If this is your store, this is primary, and this is secondary. This is primary, this is secondary. And here is the window or the door. If the height of this thing is H and the length is L, L over 2 or H over 2 is the side fins, H over 2 is fins, and the length of this thing from there to there is H. So this distance is H. That was called the primary zone. We were asking, or the Title 24 was asking the primary zone to have a daylight harvesting. And what was the zone of the daylight harvesting? It was this wing plus that width, and that's the zone. Right now, they're asking for you guys to put a daylight harvesting on the secondary zone. This was the tertiary or the interior zone, okay? That's how they looked at it. And that's the little micro additions that you have. Mandatory measures, a little bit of modifications. Power factor adjusters, we will see what that is. They modified it. There are 3 different type of calculations. One was the complete building. It didn't matter what you had. You had the bathrooms, corridors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You would get a number. And by the way, that number started with 2.2 for retail. For office, went down to 1.8, to 1.7, 1.5, 1.2, and is coming down and down and down. That number has been modified. For complete building is now lower and lower. Area category, how it was, let's say we have a Domino's pizza. What happens with area, the bathrooms was getting something, corridors were getting something, all that. Now, that will be very good if you have a jewelry shop, because when you have a very high dedicated merchandise or specialty merchandise, you would get so much value for that area. It would be great to use the area category for that. Tailored method was a little more sophisticated, where you were using the walls or a mannequin or a little jewelry, etc. Very, very complex. And we were doing that with clothing stores. And then indoor lighting allowance throughout all of these. Majority, there was 1 or 2 area categories have gone up. Majority have been reduced more and more. I guess they want to make either give us, we are going to charge more, or you just want to give us hard time. So those are some of the elements. But we were doing, I forgot to store. We were doing them at 6 watts a square feet. Right now, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Whoa, we are down. Just to let you know, that was a preamble for the whole thing. There is another item that has been added. It's called demand response. What that demand response is, and it tells you that the demand response, if your building is greater or smaller, et cetera, that really was there primarily on the in the green code. They did not emphasize it, and is coming down. It is in the lead, by the way, has always been there. If demand response lighting system is mandatory, then receptacles connected to the demand response lighting controls will be mandatory, section 135. What was for the receptacles, if you remember, and when we were doing in the last code cycle, there was such a uproar. They took it out and they said only and only you will put controlled receptacles for new buildings only and for the first tenant. So if the new building has the first tenant, it's a shell building, the first tenant comes in and that guy is there, and the second tenant comes in, you don't need it for him. But the first tenant, you will have a CR. And what that was a receptacle which had a little knot on it. And what happens is it was getting fed by two different circuits. One circuit was going to the lighting system and was controlled by turning off on, and the other one was a normal control. The actual verbiage of code simply says if you have a CR, which the entire control receptacle is controlled by the lighting, right next to it, you will put a regular normal receptacle. So the manufacturers did a smart thing in there. Exception, you do not have to do it for health and life safety. You know, if there are those for either health or life safety. Demand response simply says, I'm going to read this for you. It says demand response control lighting now required for building with total installed lighting of 4,000 watts or greater than the building larger than 10,000 square feet. So if you got a church, you got a space 10,000 square feet or more, 10,001 square feet. First of all, number one, you have to do commissioning, which was the old Cal Green Code. The gringos were telling you that. But now, if you have more than 4,000 square feet, thou shalt have it as well. So if you divide 4,000 watts divided by 10,000, that's 0.4 watts per square feet. That's smaller than the bathroom, right? Bathroom lighting system. So that means that 4,000 comes up really fast. If you have it, they're going to ask a DR. That is not Dominican Republic, okay? DR is demand response. You have to put that control. Now, once you have that system in the building, you got to go put something in front of your control building management system. So when the utility company says, I am having a hard time and you must reduce your power for me by 10%, generally 10%, you have to go, they can go directly to your DR, reduce your lighting level by DR by 10%. Let me give you a study that we did. I had a $12 million project with Mercury Insurance a long time ago. We spent all of it in their 7 or 8 buildings that they had. One of the experiments that we did, we actually had the entire system on LED. We reduced the lighting by 40%, not a single individual, not a single person from the 1,200 square feet to 1,200 people came and knocked on the door. Excuse me, can you increase the light lumens? You know, the other irony on the other side was that a lot of people who were on their private rooms, they were dimming it down to a very, very low dim levels. So just to let you know, there's another study that was happening is that when you have the motion sensor for your when you're washing your hands, you know, that motion sensor is set at 30 seconds. Majority of the people, 15 to 20 seconds, they're done. And that 10 seconds, the water is just running continuously. So just an FYI. Control receptacles are now required to be DR and verified throughout the acceptance test. Hello. Now the third party is going to come in and verify that you got all your demand response on the receptacle as well on the lighting. Remember, this is commercial. About 2 cycles ago, they called them CLLTG or cool cats, for whatever reason they call them cool cats. Those guys now will come and check it. So that's response. Controls, exceptionals for manual area control locations, just in case. Shut off controls for changes for offices greater than 250 square feet. Demand response is triggered at 4,000 square feet. Automatic daylight, mandatory now, as I mentioned, for secondary daylight zones. I got 17 minutes to go. Now, power adjustment factors. The LPDs have all ratcheted. In the old days, museums, you wanted to see the Picasso's painting, you wanted to see that. They were exempt, no mas. Healthcare, no mas. Those are now in the body of the code. These are, there was one slice that I had, which ones were reduced. I don't have them here, but I took them out. I put the actual code. These are your new allowed lighting power densities depending on the building. These are what's called complete total. Okay, if you got an assembly building, 0.65 watts throughout. So you go from there. By the way, there is a it's a section 1006, which is the emergency light. It is in the building code, not in the electrical code. And there are multiple components. One of them used to be 50 people. Now they simply says, if the space requires 2 egress paths, thou shalt provide an emergency path. And please watch out. If you go to a room and then to a hallway, do you need the second room to be an emergency path? I'm going to leave it for you, the architects. But overall, you got to watch out if the emergency lights are part of this allowed power densities. If you have the bug eyes, please do not use bug eyes for general open areas. They do not give you more than 4 feet of path. Otherwise, Jacobian Myers will knock on your door. They are only very good on the 4 feet path of travel, unless you, the architect, have created a patch of the path of travel with a hatched area. Says this is my path of travel, and fire department and building department have signed it off. Otherwise, engineers must take the entire space. Okay. And by the way, all these other areas, 0.4, remember, 4,000 watts and 10,000 square feet, 0.4, that's where they got the number. Okay, allowed power densities, they're all, this is my Alexa talking to me in English, thought I'm talking to her. Well, anyway, these are all the new power densities, etc., that you need. And by the way, all of these elements, these are some of the footnotes, and are very critical, and a lot of people don't read them. Taylor lighting reductions. This is what I mentioned when you got a painting, you got elements, you got to use this method. It gives you more if you have a jewelry, you have a mannequin, you got paintings. Believe it or not, when we used to do Taco Bells, they had all these paintings on the walls. We used to use this method and simply say that their paintings were inspiring people to have more tacos. And that's why we were doing. But anyway, by the way, the plan checkers were buying it. God bless them. And wall displays, floor displays. By the way, to make one of these work is a lot of pages. A lot of pages. And by the way, who is the lighting designer? Is the architect. Engineers only do they are the authors. And by the way, this is a cavity method. I'm not going to discuss this, and this gets a little more hairy. Indoor alterations. Listen to this. You're doing an alteration, and again, I've talked about that before. You're doing an alteration, and you find out you need to have the entire space, you modified it, and you're going to be 80% of the actual Title 24. They're going to let you do it. Not the 100%, 80%. If you take if you use a composite, if you simply do a different approach and you use the 40% reduction, let's say for the sake of argument, you got a T12. You don't want to do the entire floor. And you have T12, you simply go to the T12s you have, because when you go from T12 to lower values, you easily get 40%. You do not have to put occupancy sensors, blah, blah, the whole thing. You will save on the controls. By the way, you have 2 parts. The controls are very expensive. The lighting system, the wiring, etc., etc. It's otherwise, if you can't make these 2 sections, I have not challenged any of these. I guess it'll come to a near theater near me very soon. Otherwise, the codes apply. And then, as Gomer Pyle used to say, surprise, surprise. And I do know some of my architects that I work with, they get a TI and they think it's just a TI. If lighting comes about, you put all these, carve out all these spaces, and you make the modifications, the cost of lighting will beat the hell out of everything else. And we used to have that to be $8 to $10 a square feet. Imagine that. We call it a major heartburn. Outdoor lighting, as I said, urban clusters have moved to a different zones. Some they have moved to LZ2s, etc., LZ1. We haven't done a lot of these. All I can tell you is that when we used to do Taco Bell's, the outdoor lighting, when it was introduced, it became a nightmare. By the way, in the lighting, Title 24 outdoor lighting, there is no barter system. You can't say, I make this location very efficient, therefore I'm going to use it here. Each zone has to comply on its own. Lighting power densities are more difficult. And by the way, please, as an architect, verify the photometrics, verify its spread, etc., before you select them. Yeah, and I used to go to 3 light shows a year. Right now, no. One more on the outdoor parking. There was a hardscape different between asphalt or concrete. They took that out because of the reflections. Please verify that the controls. And if you do a parking lot, the easiest way is as follows. Ensure any other devices that are on the perimeter, they do have the baffles and you can control the shield. Otherwise, each one of those are $5,000 to $10,000, and you do not want to take them to your garage. The other items are, number one, you want to use the what they call the fins so that you can control the spillage. Okay. The next one is that you want to make sure that every one of those lighting fixtures is not an expensive item. They have a motion sensor. If they have the motion sensor and they also have a photo cell, a lot of things becomes easy. Lawsuit goes away and Jacoby and Myers can go look for another ambulance chasers. A specific lighting for special applications. There was one major issue, and that was for a kiosk where you're to a bank kiosk. A lot of discussions that you used to hear because they want that security, except now you can see the ATM machines right here. And that became an issue for securities, etc. That became major and they had to go back and fix it. But this particular one, I believe that's an application that was security cameras. If you have a security camera, you have a hardscape, you got different areas, etc. They modified it. I do not know. I have a gobbledygoo of items on photovoltaic and batteries, and I don't want to leave anybody stranded. Is there any questions before I go through this in 90 miles an hour again? Jeff?
There are no questions in chat at the moment.
God bless America. Thank you all. Either you understood it all or I put you to sleep. By the way, I do have Tylenol if I give you a headache, and it's very good for it. But let me move on. Photovoltaic and battery. If you thought you met Gomer Pyle, you haven't met Gomer Pyle. New buildings, you will have solar power. First of all, you got to meet Sarah. There's a nice lady called Solar Access Roof Area. Somebody has to define how much Sarah do you have. If you don't have enough Sarah on your own roof, you got to go look for it in the parking lot. And then you got to look to find out if you meet the exemptions. So you got to put your PVs there. Now, once you have the PVs, excuse me, sir, where's your batteries? Now, did you design the battery locations for in your commercial world? You got X number of batteries. You must put that in. And I beg you, please do not put them, because they all do have some values. Do not put them in a closet, in an area, well ventilated. And also please make sure that they do not see the sun, because it'll cook the batteries. Okay, under certain conditions, you can have the common shared system that I discussed before. So if you are there, the main other item that you have is that you do not apply for a shaded roof. If you are in a high rise, there was a building I was working on, it was fully shaded. If it is a live roof and you have a design for it, building code does not allow you to put that in there. Solar, photovoltaic, and capacity factors, you gotta verify those for your design. Battery storage and capacity factors, you gotta verify that for your design. Those are two parameters that you will be looking at. Again, meet Sarah. You got to multiply that by 14 square feet, whatever you're allowed, that's your number. But they do have exceptions. Sarah does not include all these fabulous items. Let me see if I can go to a calculations in 8 minutes. Okay, so they have two systems of PV sizing. One, you multiply your Sarah times 14 per square feet, you get your number. And the other one is you have the conditioned floor area, CFA, okay, CFA times a factor divided by 1,000, you get a KW. So given those numbers, by the way, if you take the 1,000 out, you will get watts, and this one you're supposed to divide by 1,000 as well. But based on those, the minimum of those two. Now, if you have a mixed buildings and 80% of the area is, because you will see what A means. A depends on the zone and the type of buildings that you have. You got to use these numbers. Now, there was another questionnaire that simply says, I got 80% residential and 20% office. Hello, you got to put a mixture of the two. You got to do that calculation and mix them together. One of the questions in the below. So that's how you come up with that. So you've got to come up, and by the way, performance calcs will not get you out of the performance system. So if you do the performance calc and says, I am passing with 0 PV. No, sir, thou shalt have PV. And then you can have a number, you can have 84 kW, and the other ones gets 15.65 kW. 15K65 will be the mandatory that you need. And then I'm going to go to the next. There are exceptions if your Sarah is less than 3% of the conditioned space, if your PV system is less than 4 kW, your snow load zone and your ASCII 716 for your structural engineers will simply say, no, I'm not going to let you put that in. Because, by the way, about the PV load will be about about 3 to 5 pounds a square feet of load. It's not heavy, but you still got to put that in. If utility net metering will not allow you to do that in, or you got a community solar program system. And battery system, very, very similar. It shall not be less than those two numbers. You will have a battery the same way you can, whatever PV system that you have, you multiply by DD to the power of 0.5, your KW will be required, B and D will be based on the, by the way, this is where I said about the batteries, they're doing cycling, they go round trip. It generally is a 500 or 5,000, I forgot the number. And that's why when you have a hybrid like I do, you will have to change the car because it goes through the cycling. And you have to go buy, like the computer that I'm talking to you, well, I have to go buy a $600 battery because after 3 years, it just died. These are the B and C factors. And at the end of the day, you come up with an equation, and I'm using that. I don't know if I did a calculations. I did not. Maybe I did. If the exceptions, your calculations is less than 15% of the value, if your KW or battery is less than KW, how much is that? That is amount of watts, 10,000 watts an hour. So if you have a battery that you have a 10,000 watt capacity and is going to just go to 0 in 1 hour because you have a 10,000 watts use, then that is how the sizing is done. By the way, when you buy those battery little chargers, that's how it's done. It's called milliamp hour. Zone 1, office, school, warehouse, no. School tenants, less than 5,000. Single tenant for new buildings. You do not have to have it. Multi-tenant, you got a mix match of the tenants for greater than 5,000. And I did not do these are the cumulative of all the changes. And oh boy, there was one part I really want to get into. And where am I? Okay. Long time ago, blueprints still getting published by California Energy Commission. I do not know if their FAQ is of all the blueprints are up. I do not know, but it's a very, very good source. Is if there is, and they have taken their FAQs and they have sort of subcategorized them. And if you look at these items, for the sake of argument, these are at the end of their little pamphlet. Do newly constructed multifamily buildings need to have PV and battery storage under system? Yes, prescriptive requires for PV for new multifamily battery storage requirement apply to new buildings for more than 3 habitable stories. And by the way, I'm going to leave it out to you. What is a high rise and what is not a high rise? That's a different story. Do alterations to existing multifamily buildings trigger PV battery storage requirement and return? The answer is no. Prescriptive method says it's only for new, and it goes on. It is exactly 6:30. I really went fast and I sort of subdued, etc. And anyway, I don't know if there are questions, but all I can tell you, I'm going to have 5 gallons of hot tea afterwards.
So
Merry Christmas to everyone.
don't leave that people. We have one more poll, and we do have a question. It's a long question. It's about design fees and having to meet these requirements. And at this point, because this is so new, should we be, and it's not that we can discuss actual fees, but should we be considering an added percentage to be able to take care of the new codes?
There is a slide that I did not show. In fact, I had this answer for myself. Forget about you guys. I got to go get my kids out of orphanage. I got to get money. Let me tell you what is happening. There was actually, I took it from some website. This solar website did a very good analogy. Easily, $500,000 to $2 million you could be spending on this issue. And I do know that I do get audited by my insurance company, unless I do the work for free and I do not expose the company. And I do a lot of that for different synagogue, churches, and mosques. I do that all the time, or schools. The issues, but if you do get audited, your fee based on your insurance company must be a portion of the equivalence of the amount of risk that you take. And that was the portion that I brought in. The question is, you must at least look up the means catalog, whatever your percentage is for your construction. $500,000 to, again, and don't forget, when the lighting switches, etc., was added, that was $100,000 for a 10,000 square feet office added. And you do not want to take any risk factors and take it back into your engineers or your own family. You're taking the risk. That is how the insurance company sees it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sam. So we have one more poll. This is the most important poll you will take in all of 2022. I hope this works because they have a new process. I am going to see. Okay. Let me think. Sorry, bear with me here. Oh, no, it's not letting me do it. Why they've done it this way. Okay, so thank you, everybody. And at this point, the program is over. It's just not letting me do this poll. It really was just a fun one. It wasn't anything more than that. So I hope you enjoyed this 2-part series. You just added 4 ZNCE credits for licensure plus 4 HSWs. There will be more programs coming up, certainly through Long Beach, South Bay, Orange County, and California. So thank you all. I see that people are signing off, and lots of thank yous in there, Sam. Happy holidays.
God bless you all. Merry Christmas to all. And by the way, la vida es bella, pero muy corta. Just remember that. Life is too short.
All right. So I see it's off. I am going to go ahead and end tonight's program, and it's going to cut off real quick.
God bless. Bye. Bye.
Bye, son. Happy holidays.
Thank you.